Tēnā koutou katoa, and welcome to this afternoon's session. It's my pleasure to introduce Anne Kealley. Anne's worked in higher education for the last 23 years, the last 3 years of which has been at Cordit. As the CEO of Cordit, Anne leads activities to enhance Cordit's member initiatives as strategic advisors in the use of technology in higher education and research. And I'm really looking forward to this one after the little taster that we got yesterday. So put your hands together for Anne. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Anne Kealley. I'm the CEO of Cordit. And I'd like to also introduce you over here to Stephen Wojnarowski, who's our Director of Strategic Initiatives and Analytics, or Analytics and Strategic Initiatives. And Stephen's done most of the work on the analytics behind what I'm going to present this afternoon. Now, I'd like you to just think, okay, I'm at a technical related conference. What I'm thinking myself is that with all of the sessions we've been through, I've already seen a whole pile of the background to what we're talking about here this afternoon. So while I'm putting issues or topics up on the screen here, you might like to reflect back on some of the things that you've already heard from the presenters, because I know we're going to cover some of the topics that I've seen through the sessions as well. Now, Cordit itself, we've been around for around 50 years and started off with a few people working in IT and higher ed getting together over a few drinks and talking about how they might be able to work together. And over the years, it's become a little bit more formal, it's grown. We've now got 54 universities in Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Fiji and Timor-Leste as members, along with 3 of our federally funded major research institutions and a 4th just in the process of joining. Each of those organisations are represented by their CIO, and so it's their thoughts that we're looking at this afternoon. So we've been working through this for a number of years, and I'll just touch on what we're looking at this afternoon. We'll give you a little bit of background about how we come up with the top 10. We'll give you the taster of the few items that didn't quite make it to the top 10 because they're interesting as well. We'll talk about the top 10 itself and then take a look at the patterns across the sector, because although we're presenting today sort of like a homogenous view of the top 10 for the Cordit member reps, if you dig down a little bit lower, you'll start to see variations across the sector. We'll then just touch on briefly how you might use this information and a little bit looking into the future in 2018 on what we'd like to do with the survey. So we've been surveying our member reps since 2006 to produce our top 10, so this is the 12th year of doing that, and I would think that the question we've asked has varied a little bit over those years, and as a result we've also seen the topics change, but essentially it's been what's on the minds of our member reps in that time. If we go back to 2006, the number 1 item was business continuity. And then it moved on, we looked at reskilling the workforce for the 2 years following that. Governance and strategy made the top of the list in 2009. And funding in 2010, which is always thereabouts. We saw quite a change in 2011 and 12 with the whole idea of mobility, mobile devices and how that impacted upon universities with people bringing their own devices. 2013, we saw a bit of a step change there with research support. It was obviously front of mind for people at that point in time. That made number 1. And then in 2014, 15 and 16, we have teaching and learning support, student outcomes and so on. So there's been shifts over time. We'll touch briefly on that a little bit more shortly. In terms of our methodology, how we actually did it this year, how we came up with our top 10. We started off with a literature search, so Stephen keeps an eye out all the time throughout the preceding 12 months as to what's happening in the media, what's happening in literature, what are the topics that are appearing in conversations, and he came up with 506 different articles on items that might be of interest, front of mind this particular year for our CIOs. We then produced a long list from that. I think it was 113 items. And we formed a working party who looked at those items, reduced it down to 43, 40? We then put that to our executive committee, so Court has an executive committee, and we said, well, this is what our working group has come up with. What do you think about this? And they brought it back down to 25 for us, and we put them out to the full membership, and we surveyed them, and they came back with the results of what is you're going to see in our top 10. So a fair amount of work going into it and input from a number of people there. So I would like to say thank you to our working party members. So they've come from a range of different universities and a range of different roles, volunteering their time to work through that long list to come up with the short list, and facilitated by Stephen as well. Now, as part of our work, and what you'll see later when we do the report itself, is you get to see the trends over time in the top 10. So this is going 2014, 15 and 16, and you'll see not so much necessarily what those particular items are, but as with the EDUCAUSE session that John O'Brien put up, you'll see the movement, and sometimes it's a huge amount of movement across the years, whereas, like I said at the start, the teaching and learning, the student success technologies has been consistently up the top for the last few years. But you just see that movement happening, and it's fascinating to see that as a reflection of what's going on in the sector. It also reflects changes in the CIO role as well. Now, I talked about what didn't quite make it to the top 10. So these are the items that are what we call on the fringe. And I'll just explain what's happening there on that sheet. You've got where it comes on the list. You've got what our summary is of the theme itself. And then you've got its relative positions through the last few years. So you can see via the legend, the little green triangle, it's moving up the list. The red one, it's moving down the list. The black dot, it's staying static. And if you see an issue that has just a dash next to it, it's its first appearance on the list. Okay. So, we'll come back to it, and you will get the slides, of course. I'll just bring this one up and tell you again what you're seeing here. So, this is at the top line. This is the topic. So this is the theme that's going to appear on our trend chart. Then we have the topic statement, and then we have three themes that define the nature of the topic. So our primary, secondary and tertiary themes, the topic, and then we've got the relative position of the theme over the last few years. So you'll see this on each of our slides coming up. And so this one, number 10, made it to the list, Identity and Access Management, and when you go to the trend chart, you'll see that that's been appearing for many, many years. And it's interesting. So you then say, okay, it's on the list, it's been on the list for some time, why is it still on the list, kind of thing, and you can dig down into the issues with that. We've also laid out here, so you think about the description of the topic, so you've got the theme at the top, Identity and Access Management, and then we just try to describe that a little bit, and if you think about the nuances of what is mentioned there in that topic, so there's so many key words in this. It's about effective and efficient identity and access management. It's about the provision of appropriate services to students and staff. So we try to say a lot in the actual topic about its nature to describe it as well. Okay, the next one, sustainability. And again, there's a lot of elements to that. So by sustainability, in terms of having a sustainable approach to the organisation's technology, we mean sustainable from a fiscal point of view, sustainable from a people point of view, sustainable in terms of resourcing, having the right resources at the right time, in terms of the people, treating them well so that they stay and you keep the knowledge that they have and you can continue to apply that. And, of course, sustainable in terms of efficient use of technology. And the last piece on that is about not just meeting changing needs, but sustainable in that it's minimising the costs of change. So there's a lot of elements to that. And you'll also see that that's rocketed up the rankings in that it wasn't on the list in 2015 at all. It appeared at 20 in 2016, so not all that high, but it was on the list. And now it's up into the top 10 this year as well. So it's pointing to the focus here, and it's quite a comprehensive topic, I think, in terms of what's on a CIO's mind. The next one has come up a few times, I think, in presentations as well, and it's been on our list for some time. We know there's about change. We know we heard from David Gunsberg earlier about that agile need for agility and the more agility. You've got to have a workforce that can cope with all of this, and if you haven't got your people with the right skills at the moment, it's how you help them to adapt to change and to learn new skills. And they, through your team, obviously, you're wanting IT to be there as a partner with the others in your organisation and enabling them to do what they do. So workforce evolution, I don't think it's necessarily going to go away anytime soon. And my one comment about that too is about what's agile today is not necessarily going to be agile tomorrow either. So we can never just stop and rest, I don't think. Perhaps... Yes, yes, it will be. No worries. And I'll mention our publication towards the end as well. Number 7, educational technology. And there's a few things about this as well. So this is about using innovative technology, but not for its own sake. There's got to be a reason for it, obviously. And so in this particular case, in teaching and learning, making sure that it's supporting the academics, the educational designers, the ICT specialists all collaborating to bring what is new and innovative to the party when it's the time to do so. Otherwise, it's fun to have, but we need to have a purpose for it all. And one of the other reasons we're using technology, of course, is about transforming the organisation. But you'll see the word business in front of that. So it's about business transformation, with the university and higher education and research being the business that we're talking about, and ICT being core, whether it's the lifeblood or the nerve system or whatever. It's about ICT helping transform the business functions of the institution in this particular case. So we've had the focus on research, the focus on teaching and learning. There's obviously the business side of the institution as well. There's a lot of pressure on CIOs to make sure that we operate effectively and efficiently as well. And we use the word catalyst in there, but perhaps not in the chemical sense, in that it's an inert thing that's unchanged through the process, but as an agent of change. Through ICT, the division, the people in the division being that agent to help transform the business. Now this one is about security and collaboration. If you take a look at where the relative positions of this topic has been the last few years, you'll see that it was number 5 back in 2015, and then in 2016 it dropped down to 22, and you think, well, there's a story there. What was happening then that it dropped down to 22? Important to notice that this is about collaboration in a safe way. So it's that balance on the one side of the agility, the openness, and on the other side, the security, balancing your risk with privacy, and doing it all in a hybrid environment. So nothing if not complex. But with the end user, the academic, the student, the staff member in mind, collaborating, whether that's within their own institution, within their own discipline, with each other, but around the world, being able to use all the tools available to collaborate in a secure way, protecting the university's IP, protecting all of the resources, but being open while they're doing it. This one's quite interesting in terms of its positioning. So we know there's always pressure on ICT to deliver services. This has got a particular focus on enterprise IT applications, the architectures, the sourcing strategies, and you can see in there's an element of sustainability again. But there's that agility that's been able to respond, to react, to be creative as well in terms of our delivering of services. So it wasn't on the list in 2015, but has now come up through the ranks. It's number 4. And so, again, it reflects the ongoing pressure on CIOs to deliver, deliver, deliver. Now, here we have information security. So you see at number 5, we had secure collaboration, and this one's another element of information security. So it's a comprehensive, holistic point of view of security. Again, it's taking a risk management approach to things, having the secure network in place that helps that collaboration that was happening elsewhere. And so this is something I think interesting in that it's wasn't on the list in 2015. This is what dropped secure collaboration down to 22 in 2016. So it was new to the list then. And we had, therefore, information security at 3 and secure collaboration at 22. Caused a little bit of confusion, but really, really interestingly, this time round, they're actually both in the top 5. So, quite fascinating. Now, everyone hears a lot about digital strategy. Number 2 on the list this year, you see it's actually been right up in the top 5 for the last few years. And a few elements there. It's about it being fit for purpose for your institution's future. And the other thing with it is that it was almost number 1, but this one beat it out just slightly, just shaded it. And so you can see that this has been our number 1 issue within our sector for the last few years. As I said, close run thing with digital strategy. It's interesting, we had 44 out of our 48 CIOs participating in the voting, and every vote counts because the last person voting changed the rankings. Fascinating. Statisticians love it. So to summarise, these are our top 10 for this year. And as I said, you'll get these slides, you'll see it later in our booklet. And it's also interesting to see how they compare to other institutions. So we've done, won't do that just yet, we'll compare later. I did say earlier about digging down below to see how things look across the sector and within the sector. We've taken a slice where we've looked at the top 10 by university grouping. So if you know your groupings, you've got your group of 8 universities like ANU, UWA and so forth, your ATN, your Australian Technology Universities, Curtin, USA, UniSA, RMIT, UTS, QUT kind of thing. You can see differences there. The innovative research universities, so Flinders, Griffiths, that type of group. RUN is the regional universities network. So Central Queensland University, Federation University, University of New England, for instance. The post-87 is those institutions that became universities through the Dawkins reforms in 1987. So some of them changed, for instance, from teachers' colleges to universities. So Edith Cowan University, Charles Sturt University, Western Sydney University. And then there's quite a large group that are ungrouped, who do not affiliate with any of those particular recognised groupings within the Australian sector. And lastly, we've got the New Zealand group. So I find it really fascinating to look at this to see the differences from university group to university group. So as an example, the group of 8 currently have a focus on organisational efficiency, which is actually 20 on the list this year. And you might think about this in that they are less focused at the moment on student success technologies. So it tells a bit about the story of where institutions are in their journey and what they're focusing on at any point in time. You'll also see in the innovative research universities, there's a focus on personalised learning. That's number 4 on their list at the moment. So you can see you can spend quite a lot of time just looking at the differences from university group to university group. The other way it can be interesting to look at is regionally. So you can go from state to state, territory, New Zealand, and you'll see a different breakup, a different split to this, and this can be really useful if a state-based set of universities wants to get together and work together on something. They know these are the things that interest us, as we've had happen last year. But so we could, for instance, see that the New South Wales ACT group might spend some time looking at the student success technologies just like the main group, but equally that the group of universities that are called national universities, so like Australian Catholic University, might be spending more time looking at enterprise architecture at the moment. So that's very interesting as well. How you can use all of this, obviously it gives you insights into how people are thinking in the different institutions. A CIO can use this and take it back into their institution to discuss and talk about what it means for them, what their peer groups are doing. The booklet itself, I find, is a really, really good tool. You know, it's something physical you take with you, and it's great to use to inform and communicate with the senior people in the institutions and your colleagues. It's useful to use for planning, for projects, and it's also useful for the international comparisons. So this is where we're talking about the comparison between Cordit and EDUCAUSE. So this time round, the 2017 top 10 for both groups. And you can see how we can map across from the two. It's worth just thinking about too, though, that we've got slightly different cohorts we've surveyed here. So for Cordit, we've just got our 44 CIOs from universities that voted, whereas EDUCAUSE is a much larger group, a much more diverse group. So they're not a direct map necessarily. We can also take a look at the UK. I don't have a slide on this, but we know that cyber and information security, effective use of data, supporting research, they're some of the issues that are up the top in the UK. I mentioned the publication. We're hoping to release that in June. It'll be available on our website. And then in the future, we're looking to see how we do next year's top 10. So if this is something that you're just as passionate about as Stephen and I are, you're welcome to put your hand up to come and work with us on developing what we put in front of the members for them to vote on. It's really, really fascinating to get different perspectives to the table with that. If you're interested in what CIOs might be thinking about, and keeping in mind it's technology-related things, which means you've got to look at the people, the business, and think strategically about it all. But it's good fun. Said she. If you've got any questions, by all means, happy to take a question if I've got 1 minute. Otherwise, Stephen's up at the Cordit Call and ACODE booth, and I'll be there every now and then as well. We're happy to talk about the top 10 because we find it endlessly fascinating. Thank you. Oh, do we? Okay, excellent.
So if anyone's got any burning issues that they'd like to raise?
Otherwise, you get to go early. No, we're all equal. But it is interesting, the bit that comes into differences is when you see a list of 1 to 10, do not assume they're all just equal distance apart, as I said. Like in some cases, a really line ball. It was a line ball between 11 and 10. It was a line ball between 2 and 1 as well, this particular year. Yep. 8? Yep, 8. Yep.
And so how did you get the ranking on different groups? Did you get average? How did you get
So if you want to know more about just specifically how it's pulled together, the analysis, come and see Stephen at the booth, and he'd love to tell you about it all. Yep. Yeah, and that's what we look at in the booklet. So when we are working out what we're talking about in here, we're trying to think about the why this is occurring and comment not just on the issue, but we don't actually survey and ask all the members why they said 2 was 2 at all. But you can, you know, if you're familiar with them and what's going on, you can sort of see that this is the activities in their particular institution at the time, and you can see, is this something where I've got a new Vice-Chancellor that's come in and wanted to change things? Another interesting thing we're looking at is how long the CIO themselves has been in the higher ed sector in that particular role. So you can see differences there from the ones that have just stepped into the role, ones that have been in the role a couple of years, and then the longer term people, and that's quite fascinating too. So one of the things we've identified is that the people that have just been in post, they've settled in, they're 18 months, 2 years into the role, data governance is right up the top of their list. So that's fascinating to look at that as well. Okay. So they'll be available via the website, and we will be sending them out to CIOs when we publish them around about June. Have to keep waiting. All right. Okay. Thank you very much.